every Southern belle is a Mississippi queen. Down the Mississippi, down to New Orleans. It's Ian and Cary for Last Stop Penn Station. That was a little Gary U.S. Bonds for you, Cary.
That was good.
Thanks. And just as Gary is going strong still here in Pennsylvania and Jersey, you can see him all over the place. You can catch Cary all over the place. We're going to catch you in New Orleans, Cary, in this episode.
Yes, we're taking a deep dive into New Orleans. If you like, besides there's some very interesting wrestling stuff, but if you like the bizarre and you like the a little walk on the wild side, definitely come along. But we want to primarily thank everybody who's been supporting this podcast. And we didn't know how this was going to go, but we're very pleased. I'm very grateful. We have some merch available.
ProWrestlingTees.com. Search for Last Stop Penn Station.
We have the camel shirt.
We have the camel shirt. We have the Last Stop Penn Station logo shirt. And I'll tell you what, I've seen some of the stars of Ring of Honor wearing it. I've seen some of the stars from some of our friends from other organizations wearing these too, Cary. It's just become a hot seller.
Not to mention Dave LaGreca.
Dave LaGreca, yeah. We'd like to thank Dave LaGreca. We'd like to thank Ring of Honor for continuously help getting the word out about the show.
And Mike Johnson's been helping us.
Yeah.
And my friend Eric out in Minnesota, who's been doing some of these bonus promo videos and helping me out. We thank everybody, and of course AJ, who we couldn't do the song created. We couldn't do this without him. So get ready to walk on the wild side, and we're on our march to the 75 5-star ratings. Maybe we're there now.
Yeah, and
you're gonna get a cheese basket.
That's a little preview from Cary's time at Empire Industries. Well, I hear the calling bell. That means it's time to start the show, Cary.
Okay, let's go.
All right.
Welcome, one and all, to Last Stop Penn Station podcast featuring Cary Silkin and Ian Riccaboni. They dive deep into Cary's wealth of stories, and no subject is off limits. From the world of wrestling to his ticket agency, growing up in New Jersey, drug-fueled underground days, hustling in the French Quarter of New Orleans, and endless days and nights in New York City, every story is worth telling.
Welcome, everybody, to Last Stop Penn Station, Episode 9. We are nearing the season finale, Cary.
This is amazing. And we ended Episode 8 with talking about the worst.
The worst.
Pigface Stanley and Scotty the Baboon. And we referred to them as the worst as far as these ticket guys, just because you really couldn't make any money with them. But if we're going to talk about New Orleans, the situation that got me to New Orleans
was the worst.
Pretty much the worst.
Yeah.
I was in trouble. I owed some money to some people, and I had to get out of town.
So these are kind of the people that you don't want to owe money to. That
you don't really want to owe money to any people.
Right.
But there was a chance of me having some problems.
Gotcha.
So drastic times call for drastic measures. And there I was. We're going back to 1985, boys and girls. And I'd been working at the time. Yes, I did work a little. So we're talking my pre-ticket scalping era. And my friend Bo had a souvenir store at Yankee and Shea Stadium. The Yankee Stadium store was on River Avenue, and the Shea Stadium store, which is still there, now Citi Field, when you get off the 7 train, there was a little newsstand. And Bo was a good guy, and I'd worked seasonally with him, which sort of led me to understanding the ticket game. I would see these scalpers at these events buying and selling tickets. And anyway, the 85 season ended. Bo was generous. He gave me a nice little bonus. And I'm like, you know what? I had an apartment in Jersey City. I was probably 3 months behind on the rent anyway.
Okay.
And I said, this might be a good time just to get at it. I need a little break from the area.
Gotcha.
So,
and that's kind of an interesting move because the Mets are heating up. They'd win the World Series the next year. They're getting real hot. They have Strawberry. They have Gooden. Lenny Dykstra comes over. He comes up and beats out Mookie Wilson to play center field. I mean, that team's getting hot. The Yankees have Dave Winfield.
Don
Mattingly. They're about to get Ricky Henderson, right?
Well, there was no time for me to wait for the next season.
Okay.
The season had ended, and the time had come.
The time has come. And WrestleMania had just been a monster success. Right. And you'd gone to WrestleMania, as we talked about.
Right. And but the time had come. Okay. And where am I going to go? So we had referenced, I think I referenced in episode 2 when I was giving a quick biography of myself. And we'll have to go back at some point. And I don't really know who's going to care that much about this, but I had this 4-year career, 4.5-year career working for these club bands. Mm-hmm. We're talking the late 70s. There was a huge club band scene in the New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania area. The drinking age was 18 at the time.
Okay.
And these were mainly cover bands. Mm-hmm. And yet this was the time when CBGBs and the whole punk era and the new wave era was coming out.
Sure.
The bands I loved, like Jethro Tull and Yes, and even Pink Floyd, these were considered, even Zeppelin, this was considered uncool.
Yeah, you had the Ramones, the Talking Heads, right. Blondie, Steve Forbert down at CBGB's.
Right, but I worked with these club bands. So despite this wave of this punk, this new punk stuff, there was still a thriving cover band scene, and there was lots of clubs. There was, the drinking age was 18. The drunken driving laws were practically non-existent.
Oh my goodness.
They were practically non-existent. And so where the hell was I going with this?
So we're talking about getting out of town. You're talking about your 4-year career in the with the club bands, doing the lighting, doing the promotion, things like that. And we were talking about sort of laying the foundation. I believe you'd met a woman.
Right. Thank you. See, we don't do a lot of preparation for this, but that's all right. That's the charm of this podcast. So way back working with this band, the name of the band was Version. This band was terrible. There was a good glitter. We're really going back here. This band was trying to recreate the Mott the Hoople, David Bowie, Lou Reed, Velvet Underground era, but this was like 7 years too late.
Ah, gotcha.
And we were playing this club in Hamburg, New Jersey, and I met this very nice girl, Debbie, and she was cool, and we hung out a bit, and I kept in touch with her over the years. Mm-hmm. She went out to school in California, and she'd done this and that with her life while I was just schlepping around, high on cocaine, doing nothing, getting in trouble, having struggling. So that brings us to 1985. And I had to get out of town. And I knew that Debbie had moved to New Orleans. So I just figured I might have not spoken to her for a year or two, but I had this phone number. And I called her up.
Wow.
And I said, Debbie, it's Cary. She's like, hey, how you doing? I go, well, I'm all right. Hey, listen, can I come down there? I'd like to visit you. She's like, well, I'm living with this guy.
Oh.
My involvement with her, there'd been an 8-year gap.
Okay.
So I said, look, that's fine. I'm not looking to, hook up with you. Mm-hmm. I just need somewhere to go. She's like, what's the matter? I said, well, I'll explain it when I get there, but I really got to get out of here. So she says, well, let me talk to Bobby, was the guy's name. Mm-hmm. And maybe you could stay, you could stay probably, let me talk to him and see if you could stay here for a few days. And I'm like, okay, that would be great. Let me know. She calls me back the next day. And she says, it's cool. You come down. she didn't give me a reference of time. I knew it was only going to be a few days. It wasn't, but my plan was to go there and then rent somewhere. I knew nothing about New Orleans, except it was a party town. And Bo had given me $1,500.
Oh, wow.
Which for me, but with my cocaine habit and it could have been $15,000, $100, it wouldn't have mattered. So she gave me the okay. I went and got a one-way plane ticket.
Really?
To New Orleans.
Okay.
And boom, they met me at the airport.
Wow.
And there's Debbie, and here's this guy. He was a street musician.
Very cool.
Long-haired hippie type, probably in his 30s. I was around the same age. Debbie was around the same age. He might have been a little older. And he was cordial. And they took me back to where they lived. They had a double.
Mm-hmm.
And they were probably about, 7 miles out of the French Quarter in a decent neighborhood. And they were very cordial. And I brought some party favors with me to ingratiate myself. I had some cocaine, and they liked that. And the guy liked that. So we partied that night.
So was this popular at the time I was born in 1987. You'll have to forgive me. Cocaine seems to be one of the choice drugs of the party scene in New York City. And
well, yeah, it was absolutely the choice drugs, the choice drug.
Was it cheap or just accessible or a little bit?
No, it wasn't cheap, but it was very accessible. Don't forget, I came out of the era with Studio 54, which I never went to, but where Elton John and John Lennon and Elizabeth Taylor and Michael Jackson would be in there snorting cocaine all night.
Allegedly.
And they were. Allegedly. They were. I just read Elton John's book.
Okay. There you go.
They were. And that wasn't my scene. But yes, the cocaine was abundant. And this is also the time when the crack cocaine came out, which really was
ruined a lot of communities.
A shock to the system.
Yeah.
So I go down there, and the first night, everything's rosy. And we managed to go to bed, which is a hard thing to do with cocaine, at about 6 a.m. And the guy, Bobby, he was nice. He said, listen, I said, where should I? He goes, well, you could probably rent a room in the French Quarter. Sounded very, very romantic. And so he says, look, I'm going down there. You know where Jackson Square is, right?
Yeah.
And there's the street musicians, and there's magicians.
Mm-hmm.
There's people's tarot card readers and various other street sales type people in that area. And he would, play music for money. And he walked me around the French Quarter, and he basically showed me, I was thinking, the French, I was used to Greenwich Village, NYU, the main village by Washington Square, the East Village with the whole punk ethic, the West Village with, the whole gay ethic. And it was a very big area. So I'm thinking the French Quarter, it's not going to be that big, but it's got to be
huge, right?
Well, no. And anyone who's been there knows, you have Bourbon Street, which is about, I think it's less than a mile.
Yeah, it's very short comparative. Yeah.
And then you have about 5 blocks over is the river.
Mm-hmm.
This is the mighty Mississippi.
The mighty Miss.
And 5 blocks the other way is that's the whole French Quarter.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a square mile.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Bobby brings me down there. He says, look, I got to go to work. You're on your own. So I'm bopping, and I still had a pocket full of miracles. I still have plenty of stuff. So I'm bopping.
Okay, I got to rewind that. How pocket full of miracles? So we're not just talking about cocaine at this point, or greenies too. I mean, those are big, right?
I had some Valium.
Okay.
And I had some weed. And it's back then. You got on the plane. No one looked at anything.
Really?
No one looked at anything.
Wow.
you just got on the plane. So
Okay.
I'm going around the French Quarter.
Mhm.
And this is fascinating to a man like myself, who I consider myself sexually a libertine.
Okay.
Have you ever heard that phrase?
I have. Yes.
Right. It's like whatever.
Sure.
So
I believe they call that, there's various terms now. The pansexual is one that's commonly used now, I believe. There's LGBTQ and also there's P and there's all kinds of other.
What's pansexual?
Oh, everything.
Right. All right.
Yeah.
I'll fall under that category.
A little bit of everything.
I'll
Yeah.
fall under that category. So there I am in the French Quarter, and I'm drinking, and I'm getting high, and this is great. There's bars everywhere, and there's gay bars, and I wasn't the gay bar kind of guy, but I'm just like looking, and I'm talking to people, and I'm getting high with some guys, and I don't know these people,
Mhm.
and there's this one bar. It was called the Dragon something. Well, we had the Dragon Bar from Japan.
Oh, right.
This was another. Anyway, there was a bar off Bourbon. I was out all day, and now it was around midnight. And someone told me, yeah, there's this rock and roll bar. That was my scene.
Mhm.
It opens up at midnight. So I'm thinking New York City. This is an after. Well, first of all, there's 24-hour drinking in New Orleans.
Okay.
And this is an after hours club.
Mhm.
So my experience with after hours clubs is you can use drugs wide open. In
Oh.
other words, you're sitting at a table.
Mhm.
You could break the stuff out.
Oh, wow.
Crunch it on it, right?
Was that consistent for your entire experience there?
I'm talking about New York.
Okay. Yep.
So I'm thinking that this bar, this rock place, and there's a line,
Mm-hmm.
and it opens up at midnight, and I go in there, and it's loud, and I remember ordering a drink and having to lean over to the girl who's tending bar, and I said, "Is it cool? Could you do lines?" And she goes, "No, you can't do that. You can't." I'm like, okay. So she smartened me up to that.
Okay.
So that was a little different. I later found out there were places like that, but this was my first night there.
And you were on the main drag. So,
I'm right off Bourbon.
Yeah, you're right.
Right around the bend. Anyway, I knew enough that I couldn't stay out all night. These people were letting me stay at their house. I got to get back there. It was already like 2 a.m.
Okay.
So I believe I took a cab back to where they lived.
Mm-hmm.
And this was my first bad move, not taking the cab. The bad move was coming back to their place so late.
Sure.
Because they had crashed, and I don't believe they had given me a key.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I had to call them up to let me in.
Yeah.
And that wasn't good. And so I get in the house. The guy lets me in. He's just giving me a dirty look.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, bro. So he don't say anything. So I go crash on the couch. And when morning came, whatever hour it was, maybe it was 10 a.m., it really doesn't matter, but it wasn't real early because he didn't get up real early, but it was around 10-ish. And I open my eyes, and the very first thing I see in their place, as I'm laying on the couch, horizontal, as I open my eyes, there's Bobby in a chair, just looking at me.
Oh,
like
that's
this.
not good.
And I'm like, hey, man, what's up? Good morning, man. He's like, you got to go.
Wow. One day.
Yeah,
Oh,
one day.
yeah.
And I said, all right, I didn't get a place yet. He goes, I don't care. He goes, you got to go. I said, all right, look, can I just leave my stuff here and let me go try to get a place? And then I'll come back. I'll get the stuff. I won't be late. I'm not going to hang out. And I really appreciate what you did for me. He's like, yeah, all right, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But take a shower, get out of here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I go get cleaned up.
Yeah.
Now there I am having to find, thank God I didn't spend the whole $1,500 in the verse. I had some shit, right? So so now there I am. Did I take I might have taken a cab, but I stopped at a store to get a coffee and a local newspaper. There used to be newspapers. Well, they still have newspapers, but there used to be classified ads where you would look for jobs and you would look to
rent a room
for room rentals, as well as people selling things. And this was the Craigslist, the original Craigslist.
Sure.
So I bought the Times-Picayune, I believe.
Yeah, a very honorable newspaper.
And I'm looking at these. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So amongst the many ads, there was just this one: rooms for rent, furnished, French Quarter, kitchen, bath, $300 a month. I'm like, ooh, this doesn't sound bad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you've been there, but you wouldn't know specifically. If you could pick a spot where it was like the epicenter of the partying, it's Bourbon and St. Louis. And there was a club, oh, damn it, our preparation. This woman had a club, Chris something or other, and it was a tourist attraction, just like, quite a few steps below Preservation Hall Jazz. But this was a touristy kind of schlocky show they did for these tourists. But the corner of Bourbon and St. Louis was the heart. As you go further down Bourbon Street and it gets a little darker, that's where like a lot of the gay bars are. And
it gets a little quieter too.
It gets a little quieter, but this was in the heart of the, the epicenter. And the entrance to the apartments wasn't on Bourbon, it was on St. Louis. So luckily the person involved in the room rental was there.
Wow.
And they required very little, like they showed me the room and it was pretty clean. Yeah. It wasn't bad. It was like, little kitchen, bathroom, bed. I'm set.
Yeah.
And I guess it was, 1 month's rent and a 1 month deposit, $600.
Sure.
That's fine. So I sign up, right? I sign on the dotted line. And at which point the guy, Bobby, I guess he was doing his music thing. I don't really remember, but during that daytime period, I was able to get hold of Debbie and was able to take a cab, not see him again. Yeah. I did see him later when I was bopping around the French Quarter.
Sure.
But pick my stuff up and drag it back. And there I was on the corner of Bourbon and St. Louis. And that was the start of my adventure in New Orleans.
Did you ever feel any anxiety knowing that you only had, this is really before credit cards in a large way, right? You probably didn't have a credit card.
I had a credit card.
So you almost no safety net. You had cash, but you knew the cash was going on the White Lightning. You were riding the rails, right?
Well, I was riding the rails, but I didn't really know anyone down there yet but I knew I had to preserve this money.
Okay.
And I knew that I had to figure out some way to get some kind of income along the way. So I secured the room and I was very happy. Inside the room, inside the place, it was fine. But whenever you walked out the door, whether it was 8 at night, 4 in the afternoon, 2 in the morning, 9 in the morning, it's like you're walking out to this wild party, and which was fine by me. So there I am by myself, and I'm trying to just get the lay of the land. And after being there a few days, I realized, this place isn't that big. Mm-hmm. What the hell am I going to do? And there was a bar over by that Jackson Square called the Alpine.
Okay.
And it was like a neighborhood kind of bar with locals in there. And I wound up going there and the people were friendly. And I wound up, this is over the course of a number of days, and maybe a week, going back there, getting to know these people. These were dyed-in-the-wool, alcoholic partiers, and they were all locals. Yet, none of them were from New Orleans.
Wow.
Everyone was a transplant.
Kind of like Tampa and Orlando.
Exactly.
Okay.
There was no one born in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
And I met this guy, Jim Russell. He was an artist, and he did, they have these New Orleans posts every year. They have Mardi Gras posters.
Right.
And he would do one every year. And I met this guy and I met this girl and this chick, there was yet another Debbie, not my Debbie.
Mm-hmm.
There was another Debbie that I met there, and I started becoming friendly, and they were cool. And I was just hanging out, trying to conserve money by just drinking and not really looking to get involved. I mean, if the drugs would have came my way, they would have came my way. But as time went on, over the next days, weeks, the money started getting thin.
Mm-hmm. So what do you do then? I mean, you said you hadn't really worked a job since you did some lighting and some managing of these bands.
And working with Bo at a souvenir store. And when I worked at the souvenir store, at Bo's store, I was allowed to drink. As long as you're not, as long as you're hustling.
Yeah.
And, I was honest. So yeah, what do you do? Well, from working with Bo and getting to know the scalpers, and Bo used to get pissed off. Shea Stadium was perfect because the people would be coming down the 7 train ramp.
So
you could be like, hey, who's selling tickets? So you get a guy, I got 4 tickets, 4 box seats. I give you 5 each.
Mm-hmm.
The guy, here, take them. They're from my company. You flip them for 15, whatever. So I knew how to flip tickets. And Bo would let me do it a little bit at these games, but he didn't, I was supposed to be selling his souvenirs, right? Not hustling tickets.
The Howard Johnson merchandise,
right?
The Daryl Strawberry merchandise,
right. Yeah. And we used to do big business at the U.S. Open back then.
Oh, okay.
Not to mention when the Who played there, the Police played one in 82. The Police were at Shea Stadium.
Oh, wow.
It was huge.
Yeah, they would have been right on the come up then.
Huge. Yeah. But so I had this experience with flipping tickets. So the money was running out, and it was a Sunday, and the New Orleans Saints were playing maybe the Detroit Lions, and the Saints were lousy. Now we're in the middle of October, and they have like a 1-4 record, and the Lions aren't much better. The great Eric Hipple.
Wow. That's a name I haven't heard in years.
And I'm going to have to tie this into remind me about Eric Hipple, because it ties into one of these characters that I met at this Alpine bar who had a great expression. But we're going to get back to Eric Hipple and this great expression.
Okay.
It's gold.
Yeah.
But so I'm like, I'm going to walk over to the Superdome, and I'm going to try to buy and sell some tickets. Now, I had no idea what the police situation is. I had known from working with Bo and seeing the scalpers every day, they were very territorial. Mm-hmm. And even at Yankees, because I was at Yankee Stadium every game and Shea Stadium every game, and they would have like designated cops, and there were certain places you could stand, but in the first places you can't get near the box office. Mm-hmm. So here at the Saints game, you're talking about a 70,000 seat stadium where they only sold 30,000 tickets.
Oh, that doesn't seem like a good market.
Well, plus the box office has tickets.
Yeah.
So you can't get near the box office. And I'm watching, and I see there's about a half dozen hustlers there. Mm-hmm. And these were dyed-in-the-wool scalpers. I certainly didn't know them, but I knew they were hustling. Mm-hmm. And I think I went up to one of them, and I asked him, "Hey, can you sell it?" And the guy, "Get out of here, man!" And then I walked up to another guy. There was an older white guy, and who's selling tickets? Who's selling tickets? Who needs tickets? Who's selling tickets? And I said, "Hey, do they bother?" He goes, "As long as it's not in front of the box office." He goes, "Hey, leave me alone. Just don't go by the box office." So I'm like, "All right." So he goes, don't go by me either. I go, yeah, no problem. So I moved away and I'm doing the who's selling tickets routine. And I get a guy, I think the tickets were $12. I get a guy, he's got 4 seats, 4 extra tickets. And I knew that, the average person thinks they've got 4 tickets that are $12 and they're on the 10-yard line lower level. Mm-hmm. You're certainly going to get your $12 a piece back. And the scalper, in this case being me, is saying, I'll give you 20 for all 4.
Yeah.
What do you mean 20? Yeah. So you try to give them 25. So point is, I was able to buy and sell enough tickets. I remember the number exactly. I made $135 and was able to get, as a matter of fact, I went into the game.
Wow.
I had one extra ticket. Yeah. I went into the game just to check it out. And I thought I hit the lotto.
That's a good haul.
Super Bowl. Yeah, it was a good haul. So I'm like, this is something that I can do. Mm-hmm. And so I ran back to the Alpine and I was starting to get friendly with this chick, Debbie, this other Debbie from the Alpine. And I guess a couple of weeks had gone by and there were so many odd characters in there. There was this guy, Harry, that worked for the artist. And he was, this guy was just a drunk and he would be his so-called distribution guy. Mm. The poster wasn't ready for that season. The Mardi Gras was still months away.
Right.
And there was this old military guy there. And I forget that they would call him Sergeant. And these are just, drinking all day. And this guy, the Sergeant, he had this expression. Like you would say to him, hey, man, did you watch the LSU game yesterday? You see they lost in the last minute? And he'd look at you and he'd nod his head in agreement. And he'd say, kiss a sick monkey's ass.
that sounds like the equivalent of hog's dick, which is one of your catchphrases for those who know you well.
You could use this kiss a sick monkey's ass. He would use, this guy would say, like I would saw him another time. Yeah. I'm like, hey man, Sarge, I saw you talking to that girl, talking to that lady last night. I saw you leaving with her. And I go, yeah, everything cool? He goes, my man, kiss a sick monkey's ass. We had a great time.
So this is positive. It's like John in Philly, where you can use it for anything.
Right. Like hog's dick.
Hog's dick, yes.
Right. So somewhere along the line, it might have been that Lions game, one of these drunks in there, might have been that Harry guy. He says, and I was telling the story of making the money, and he was like the New Orleans version of what turned out later to be baby dumplings. And he says to me, when you're down on your luck, but you made some money working a game with Eric Hipple, kiss a sick monkey's ass and suck a red nipple.
Wow. He's a poet too.
And suck a red nipple. That was the exclamation too.
Okay. So you've got, you've made some money. You figured out
a few dollars.
And you mentioned LSU, and that's not too far away. Do you go to Baton Rouge at all and try your luck there? Okay.
So I thought, now I'm a ticket genius. Yes. So I see that next week, LSU is playing Florida State.
Probably Florida, probably University of Florida, probably the Gators. Yeah. Because that's a SEC.
So, and I'm starting to, Debbie and I are starting to be a little bit of a thing.
Oh, right? Okay. Yeah.
And the other thing was, she knew about my provocative lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I don't really care, but do me a favor. If my sister ever comes to town, I go, what are you talking about? So we'll get to her sister in a little bit.
Okay.
So I tell Debbie, I'm going to go up to this LSU game. She go, what do you? I go, well, I'm going to try to hustle tickets. So I take a bus. Might have been, I don't know, $12 round trip.
Wow. Okay.
So I take this bus on a Saturday morning up to Baton Rouge. being from New Jersey, now here's a guy, I've been out at giant football games. I've been at these huge Grateful Dead shows, the aforementioned Police at Shea Stadium, giant, tons of big events. But I had never witnessed college football like it really is. What does that mean? I knew college football from TV, but in Jersey, what do you got? Rutgers?
Yeah, and then that's only recent, right?
And, here you have Penn State, but that's still, I'd never witnessed real college, but the scene.
Right.
So I get off the bus in Baton Rouge, excuse me, and I take a cab. It's like $3, maybe a couple of miles. And I might have got to the stadium site. Maybe it was 2:30 in the afternoon, 1:00. And I look, and there, you've been to Eagles games.
Sure.
You've been to outdoor concerts. AJ and I just went to the Who at Citizens Bank. And I've been to, Giant games and so on. And these Dead shows. And there was tailgating isn't even the right word. People would set up light housekeeping. They would get there like Thursday night. I found out from asking, not just the LSU fans, but the visiting team.
Oh, yeah.
There was like 10,000 tickets allotted to the visiting team. I went there, not to jump ahead, but I went there. They played Kentucky.
Okay.
And there was thousands and thousands of visiting fans, as well as obviously the LSU fans. So I get to the stadium and I'm astounded by the amount of people. And the same guy who brushed me off but told me who gave me a little advice but told me to stay away,
give a little nectar
at the Dome. There he was.
Wow.
So I saw him and I went like he wants to tell you, don't want to talk. So I went up to him. I said, what's the deal here? He goes, just don't go by the front. He goes, get away from me. He goes, but just don't go by the front. And
again, a nice little tip.
He gave me another tip, but I didn't take to heart. He said, these people don't pay. These people don't pay. And I'm like, okay. Well, by about 3:00, I'd been walking up and down these rows and rows. Who's selling tickets? Who's selling tickets? Nobody was. But, do you have any to sell, man? And I made a grave mistake. The color of it was a little cool, and I had a red jacket, which was the Florida colors. Okay. And someone said me, and I'm like, oh shit! So I wound up taking it off and like tying it around my waist.
Yeah.
So I would not spend the money for an LSU T-shirt. So there I am looking for these tickets. So a cluster of people starts forming on the main intersection. Now, have you ever been to, you're too young probably, but at these Dead shows for years, people would stand with like, I need a miracle, or you've been to these events. Like
sure. I've been, Dave Matthews Band would be the equivalent for my generation.
2 tickets.
Yeah.
There was buyers galore.
Yeah.
But there were no tickets. So finally, after like walking, I get a guy. Yeah, I got 4 extra. And the tickets were $12. I go, what do you want for them? He says, well, 12 each. I go, look, I give you 10 apiece. He's like, these are $12 tickets, sir. They're a Southern gentleman, right?
Sure.
So I'm like, you know what? I better buy these because there's so many people.
It's a flood of people.
I'm going to get 20, 25 each. So I buy the 4 tickets. I go to this area where these people are gathering, and this is going to be a slam dunk. A guy's holding his hand up. He needs 4. I got 4 here. They're lower level end zone. How much? I go, 25 each. He goes, 12 each. I go, there's no tickets, bro. I go, 25. Give me 20 each.
Yeah.
Nope. I'm going around. Another guy. Everyone needs tickets. I finally found, there's hundreds of people. So a couple of people broke down and paid $20.
Okay.
But the point is, these people don't want to sell for underprice and they don't want to pay over the price. It's very difficult, even though there was this massive demand. So I got to struggle to find more seats. I find a guy who has 2. I get him. I request selling them for 10 apiece. He acquiesced. I told him some sob story. I'm meeting my girlfriend. I don't have a lot of money. He goes, here, take them. So I flipped a few tickets, but I'd only made like $60. And there was such a huge demand. And now it's like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. The game was at 7.
Yeah.
So I'm like, Jesus Christ, I should be walking out of here with $500.
Yeah.
But there's no tickets to buy. And if you do find them, they don't want to spend. So I did what the guy told me not to be careful of, but I went right up to the front because everyone's pouring in.
Yeah.
Well, there's a kid, a student. I said, anyone sell tickets? He goes, I got 10, sir.
Oh.
And I said, you got 10 seats? And he goes, I go, what do you want for him? He goes, well, 5 each. Well, I look at the tickets and they were student tickets, $5. So I'm like, look, if the people are paying 12, right? Or you could squeeze 15 or 20 out of a few of them and it's game time. And I'm going to make something here.
Sure.
So I grabbed the 10 tickets, give them the $50. I go back to this cluster.
Yeah.
And the police didn't bother you. They just didn't bother you.
Yeah.
So I go back to the cluster. And on my way to the cluster, I'm examining the tickets and I read the fine print. Only valid with student ID.
No.
Well, people know me. I'm a pretty honest guy. I am an honest guy, but this was a different life. And I'm like, maybe they're not going to last for the ID. Everyone's pouring in. So I find a guy, everyone's looking. A guy goes, I need 3. I go, yeah, I got 3. I go, they're 20 each.
Yeah.
And this was at a stage where they were like, all right.
It's DEFCON 5.
And it's like, he gives me the 60. And I'm like,
yeah.
I go. I got rid of those 10 tickets. 6, some at 20, some at 10. I think I had 1 left. I got $8. I go, here, go.
Yeah.
And I head for the hills.
Yeah.
I head for the hills. I hope those people got in. I hope they got in.
To 35 years. They'll hopefully no one who bought those tickets.
I hope they got in. You. But I had to do it.
Yeah.
I had to do it. And I remember calling Debbie and saying, yeah, I'm on my way back. How are we doing here?
Oh, we're doing well. Yeah. Yeah, the time is good. I got some rapid fire. We like to keep it condensed, but we'll get to some rapid fire. So you called Debbie.
Yeah, and I made it back there. And along the way, a few more weeks went by, and I went back to the Saints game. There was a Saints game that they won a couple of games, and they were maybe playing the Chiefs, and it was a little bit better of a game. And I was able to make some money there. And as time was going on, and I'm getting very familiar, she tells me her sister is coming to town.
The time has come.
The one, and I'm like, well, so your sister's coming. It's whatever. She goes, listen, I want to just tell you something. My sister, her name was Libby. Okay. The sister. She wound up getting the nickname Liberal Libby.
Okay.
So she says, look, I see you. You tell me your stories. I don't give a shit. At the time, besides the gay bars, there were these male hookers on like abundant and female. Yeah. But male hookers.
So that's what New Orleans and New York at the time had in common, shoulder to shoulder.
And there was this bar it was called the Rawhide or the Riptide. It was probably the Rawhide. It was right where I was on St. Louis and Bourbon, right across Bourbon, about 150 yards down.
Yeah.
It was this 24-hour a day. Picture a country western gay bar.
Okay.
But here's the thing, like they say in Hades.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. It was a gay bar, but it was another one of these just party animal places. And here's the thing. Every day they had a special. So for example, on a Thursday, between 1 in the afternoon and 6 at night, shots of blackberry brandy, 25 cents.
Wow.
Or Friday, shots of tequila, 25 cents. Ooh, Saturday, college football day, draft beers, 16-ounce mugs, a quarter. So these periods of time, it was not a game. It was these people that were hip to it and wanted a great deal on booze, because you could go 3 doors down to a nice place and pay $4 for a blackberry.
Sure.
Same thing.
Yeah.
So these people that knew about it, they'd go to the Rawhide, right?
Awesome.
So there was this, just what a scene it was.
Yeah.
So, and I had met some of these guys, hookups, and I was dating Debbie, and she sort of knew.
Yeah.
She did know. And she didn't care, but she just said, look, when my sister gets here, her thing, every fucking time she's come around, if I have a boyfriend, she tries to get with him. And
hello. I'm
like, I'm not going to do that to you. Right. And I really had no intention of it. So, Liberal Libby's on her way.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm struggling for money. And, to throw a wrestling tidbit in here, more of a tidbit, I was every Saturday, I would get to the bar, or I had a TV in my room, but I would get to the bar at 11 o'clock because the Mid-South was on.
Okay. Yeah.
And
who are some of the stars there? Junkyard Dog.
He had left,
just
but
left.
You had Buzz Sawyer.
You
had
Ted DiBiase.
Terry Taylor.
Terry Gordy.
It was loaded. Hacksaw Duggan, when he was good. We spoke about this. Hacksaw Duggan was fantastic.
The Sheep Herders.
The Sheep Herders came in.
Yeah.
So every Monday at the Municipal Center, which was on the outskirts of the not so great part of the French Quarter, they had a house show every Monday.
So something that wasn't televised.
And I would go.
Oh, wow.
And the crowd was probably 80% black. It's just the way it was.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
I loved it. And that's when Dark Journey.
Oh, the great man, the vivacious manager.
And Dick Slater was there. Did the Heat? I mean, the Heat.
Well, they were an item together outside the ring.
Well, that I didn't know, but the heat in that building, and I'm not talking about the temperature.
So just the crowd involvement and
and these were just house shows. And I saw a dog collar match.
Wow.
Between Buzz Sawyer and Hacksaw Duggan.
Yeah.
And you could look this up because it was in one of the top 25 matches of the year in Dave Meltzer's Observer.
Oh, wow.
And they took that one around the loop, just like Bushwhacker Luke wrestled 35 barbed wire matches in 32 days against the Fantastics.
Wow.
So this was just an every night thing. So I'm thinking they're doing a dog collar match. They're just going to phone it in. They didn't phone it in. It was awesome. Awesome. So
you're seeing wrestling.
I'm having a time of my life.
The money's kind of okay, but not really.
Well, the money's. I'm starting to get to the point where the scalping money is basically all I have, which leads me to another scalping story. I'm getting desperate, and I'm talking about desperate. I have very little money, and the Saints were out of town. The LSU wasn't playing.
I hadn't even considered that there's only 8 weeks in a year you could do this.
And I see that there's a Beach Boys concert.
Wait a minute. Was this the Kokomo album? Or not yet, or right?
It was a daytime show.
Okay.
And it was out by where the Lakefront Center is, but it was outdoors. There was some
amphitheater or something.
Miniature amphitheater. And I went out there and there was no other hustlers. And I remember going up to a cop and I said, is it okay? I have some extra tickets. Some of my friends didn't show up. And the guy says, yeah, you just can't sell them over the price. It's all right. Mm-hmm. Well, so tickets for what? $10? I'm paying people like $6, $5, $3, $7, whatever they'll pay. Yeah. And there were plenty of buyers.
Oh, wow.
And I even went into the show, made $100 at the Beach Boys.
There you go.
Then I got another $100 in my pocket.
Perfect.
So this is going back and forth on. And I'm going broke again. And it's the next week. Well, no LSU again, no Saints again.
Wow.
But Grambling and Morgan State.
That's a big rivalry.
Huge rivalry.
For the HBCUs, yeah.
Was playing at the Superdome.
Wow.
Now, for people that don't know, these are probably two of the finest black colleges in the country.
And marching bands, too.
And have produced some of the greatest players.
Absolutely.
And most of the fan base was African American.
Sure.
So there I am, hustling tickets.
That's good.
And I saw the same guy.
And you've looked very similar for the last 40 years. I've seen photos of you.
You're being very generous.
No,
a little more hair. But anyway, so I see the same guy, and there were there was of course some other hustlers that I would see, a couple of black guys, and there was no fighting. And the guy who advised me the first time and then told me to get away, and then he advised me at LSU and told me to get away.
Yeah,
I see him.
So that's a good sign that it's a hot ticket.
He goes, you better be careful here, my man. Now, maybe he had an in with the police.
Okay.
Maybe he didn't. Well, this was a sold out game. And once again, there was a lot of buyers. Mm-hmm. And I remember I went to the game and I had like $100. I know what happened. I had to borrow $100 from Debbie to have some working money.
Okay.
So I buy a couple of tickets, and it was very hard to resell. It was, you couldn't get over the price. The people just they weren't going to pay. So, but there were a lot of buyers. So I catch a guy, and he's got 4 seats, lower level, like section 110 on the 40-yard line, like 19 row, like the perfect seats.
Yeah.
And he sells them to me for $10 a piece. I think they were $14 tickets. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm going to get 20 a piece for these. There's got to be a buyer at 20 and get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
I knew to get out of Dodge. So I did what you're not supposed to do. And I went too close to the box office. And I have these 4 nice men who need 4 tickets.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, they're 20 each, guys. Mm-hmm. And the guy's like, well, I'll give you 14 each. Mm-hmm. I go, damn, these are on the 40-yard line. Well, suddenly I get a tap on my shoulder.
Oh, no.
And I turn around, and there's a black guy and a Latin guy. And the guy goes, how much are those tickets? I go, 20 each. And I turn back to try to sell them to the other people, and he taps me on the shoulder again, and he goes into pulls out the badge, the hanging badge.
Yeah.
And I'm like, listen, man, I'm sorry. He goes, what are you doing out here? Are you the stupidest white guy in New Orleans? So I go, I guess I am. I'm sorry. You're hoping he's going to just say, look,
just get lost.
Give me the tickets.
Yeah. Get
out of here. He goes, I got to take you inside. I go, please. He goes, you're an idiot. I'm like the camel's wife.
Yeah.
Not take the money. Yeah. What are you doing out here, you idiot?
Yeah.
So he brings me, and they have jails right in the dome.
Oh, wow.
just like they do at Citizens Bank. Just like they do.
They set the vet. Yeah, right. Yeah.
So they bring me into the jail, and I'm like, oh, what's going to happen?
You're like Freddie the Weeper. Oh, no.
Oh, why did I get involved? Freddie the Weeper is going to come into part 2 of New Orleans, by the way, as well as Bo from the souvenir stores. Yeah. Because we get into, I'll get to my getting locked up in a second, because we get to part 2 of New Orleans because they had the Super Bowl. That's when the Bears played the Patriots with Doug Flutie and the Refrigerator Perry. Mm-hmm. And so that's another phenomenal, amazing stories. Anyway, to finish this amazing story, I'm now being locked up in the temporary jail. And if you could have a classic,
there's a juxtaposition, I imagine.
Good old boy, New Orleans cop, not the guy that busted me. They were plain clothes. Mm-hmm. This guy now has to take me. He's annoyed. He's got to take me downtown to the holding cell. And he was getting off his shift. Mm. And now he's got to take this stupid white asshole who's out trying to hustle tickets at an obviously predominantly African-American event. And I'm causing this guy to miss family time.
Yeah.
So he sticks me in the cell, and I'm like, listen, I'm sorry. I'm hoping maybe he's going to cut me a break.
Sure.
And he goes, you're sorry. He goes, I'm sorry. He goes, I was going to go out with my wife and my kids. I can't do a good Southern accent. Anyway.
So, and that's like a Cajun accent. That's even a tougher accent.
Right.
Yeah.
So we get now he takes me in the police van. And I said, can I ask you, sir? I go, what's the procedure? He goes, well, you got any money? I go, a little. He goes, well, if you got enough money, you could probably bail out. So that's all he said. I'm like, all right. So we drive to the local precinct. Mm-hmm. And there I get shoved into a holding cell. So we've moved from the Superdome to the local New Orleans jail. And now I am in this cell with 40 other guys, ranging from a guy who just slashed his sister's throat.
Oh my goodness.
To drunks, young kids that were drunk and disorderly. Yeah. Another guy got caught with weed. The gamut. Mm-hmm. A guy who's what do you hear? What are you here for, man? The guy says to me, I'm a paper hanger. I go, what the paper? What do you know what that means?
Is that a counterfeiter? Or?
It means writing bad checks.
Oh wow.
So anyway, there's a phone, one payphone. And I had on me, I counted it when I was in the police, at least the cops didn't take the money. So they could do I had $107.25.
So you're up $7.25.
Yeah, so whopping $7.25. Those 4 tickets would have put me over.
Oh, sure.
Anyway, so one of the guys who amongst the 40, I said to him, how long do they hold you here? He says, well, I've been here before. This is under Napoleonic law.
Excuse me?
Yes. New Orleans is under Napoleonic law. In other words, they have their own system. Wow. In other words, maybe in New York City, you must see a judge within 24 hours.
Sure.
Something like that.
Yeah, to speedy trial. Yeah.
Right. This one was, so I go, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, they don't have to call you for 6 days. He goes, I've been here for 4.
Wow.
This is just in the holding cell. Yeah. Not that I wanted to go to the other jail.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. So I take my quarter. And go to the phone and I call the Alpine. Mm. That's where I call the bar.
Yeah.
And I got hold of Debbie.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was Jim the artist. And I just told him where I was. I might need your help. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, I might have been the stupidest man at the Dome, but I was the luckiest man at the jail because the first time the cop came down to call names to go to see the judge, I was amongst the names.
Wow.
And one of the other guys, might have been the guy that told me about the 6 days, he said to me, he asked me what I said I was selling. He goes, selling tickets. He goes, yeah, they're probably going to charge you for $100 to get out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, oh, all right. So they call my name,
mm-hmm.
and I'll go up. And there's like 7 other guys. One of the guys that was two kids drunk and disorderly.
Mm-hmm.
One of the guys of the violent crime. And the judge was basically, no matter what you did, it was like $100 was set a court date. He slashed his sister's neck.
Oh,
but that's
Jesus.
$200.
That's very arbitrary
So
system.
The next slasher was, so the drunken kids, 100, the weed, but they didn't have any money.
Yeah.
And off they go.
So they're back to the.
No, they're not back. They're going to the next. They're going to the prison. So I go up, and the guy's reading ticket speculation. The judge ticket speculation. I thought he was going to just say, and he goes $100. So I say to my public defendant, the public defendant says, "You got the money?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, it's $106. There's court costs. Well, remember I had
$107.25.
So I had the 106. I got out and I walked back to the Alpine and I borrowed another 100 from Debbie.
Wow.
And who was there? Her sister.
Her sister. And I got a lot of questions about Liberal Libby. Got a lot of questions, including the big one. I think we all know what the big one is, but we'll save the big one. Because we're going past 10 episodes in season 1, Cary.
Okay.
Because we got to do part 2 now of New Orleans.
Well, there's going to be probably a part 2, and there's room for many more parts. Are we getting to our?
We're about an hour on the dot, so I think this is a good place, especially with the hanging, the sword of Damocles. The
Liberal Libby has come to town.
She has, and I got some questions about Liberal Libby. Did it happen? When did it happen? Why did it? Now, and hopefully we can answer.
Might not have happened.
Might not have, right? Well,
we'll have to wait till episode number
10, which means of course we're going
exciting
back.
season conclusion. Episode number 10. We'll have by then. Hopefully, we'll have a Liberal Libby T-shirt by then.
So I'll just do rapid fire. Tie it back to wrestling, right?
Okay.
So we'll tie it back to wrestling. You said you saw this dog collar match. Well, how would you compare it growing up in New York?
Oh, forget it.
Yep.
Well, I mean, most of the cards in New York, even the good ones at the Garden, were very slow.
Mm-hmm.
You'll hear Jim Cornette talk about when he finally got to see Madison Square Garden. He was terribly disappointed. But sometimes they had great matches. I remember the Sergeant Slaughter Sheik,
the boot
Iron
camp
Sheik,
match.
right?
Yeah.
This was violent. So their cards were, their cards were real, was kind of that NWA wrestling. And if they wanted violence, they had violence.
Yeah, you became great friends with Bushwhacker Luke. What was seeing the Sheep Herders like for the first time?
Well, the Sheep Herders were a surprise special attraction. We spoke about this briefly, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
They had a camera there one day, and they jumped the rail.
Wow.
And they wanted to use that footage for TV. And that was just so cool.
Yeah.
And did I mention Dick Murdoch? He was there.
You
too.
did, yeah. Dick Murdoch, yeah.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
And what was it like? You had arrived right after Junkyard Dog had left. They were trying a couple of replacements. I think Master G, George Wells, was there.
I don't remember. I don't believe he was there.
He would go to the WWF very shortly thereafter, too.
The Junkyard Dog replacement, they were in a transition at the time. And I think Duggan and DiBiase were the big stars at the time.
Terry Taylor.
Yes.
Terry Gordy. Yep.
Al Perez, yeah. But the matches were great. And I used to love going.
Yeah. And what would a ticket like that cost back just to get you in the door?
$4.
$4.
Yeah.
You can't get a sandwich for $4 anymore.
A mere pittance.
A mere pittance. Well, with this means we're going past 10 episodes in season 1, Cary. We knew we were going to have a lot of fun. And this means we're going to 11 because we're going to get to the Garden. That's the culmination of this season.
Yes.
Because that is Penn Station. So this is episode number 9. Episode number 10 is going to be part 2. Maybe we'll have part 3 of New Orleans, wherever our journey takes us. But for this episode, we want to thank you for listening. Rate, review, subscribe.
Yes, please subscribe. Please go to our YouTube page. Hopefully we'll have some merch. We're going to have some merch available.
Yeah.
Not hopefully. We are going to have merch on the Pro Wrestling Tees site. And let us know what you think about all this craziness.
Yeah. Let us know who your favorite character is. That's the challenge for this episode. Of all the characters, whether it's Mama Pretzel, whether it's... oh, geez.
Pig-Face Stanley.
The camel.
The camel. Baby Dumplings.
Baby Dumplings. The great lyricist Baby Dumplings.
Right. And Liberal Libby is now in.
She's in the lexicon. And
we haven't even spoken about her yet.
Yeah, the mysterious Liberal Libby.
Oh, my goodness.
Did you? No, well, don't answer that. We'll save that for next time. We'll save that for next time. For Last Stop Penn Station, episode 9. For Cary Silken, I'm Ian Riccaboni. Happy wrestling.
Thank you.
And we'll see you on the flip side with more New Orleans and Liberal Libby.
I thank God it stole the handle, and the train it won't stop going, no, it just slowed down.
We hail you for listening to Last Stop Penn Station podcast. Rate, review, like, subscribe, and share on your favorite platform. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or at laststoppennstation.com.